I'm going to call to order the Town of Gilbert Planning Commission regular meeting. The first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody can please stand and face the flag. Thank you. Next item will be roll call.
Chair Anderson? Chair Anderson?
Here.
Vice Chair Bloomfield?
Here.
David Cavaney?
Here.
Noah Munt?
Here.
Scott September?
Here.
Jan Simon?
Here.
Les Smith? Alternate Philip Albrandi? And alternate Nathan Mackin. Here you have a quorum.
Did you get Commissioner Smith is here? Okay,
I did.
thank you. Next will be approval of the agenda. During the study session, it was recommended by staff that items 17, 21, and 22 be moved from the public hearing to the consent calendar. Is there anybody here to speak on either of those items? No? Okay. Vice Chair, can I get a motion, please?
Certainly. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda with items 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 21, and 22 on the consent agenda. And then we'll be hearing on a regular agenda 18, 19, and 20. Those would be the changes. Other than that, as is.
Okay. Is there a second on the approval of the agenda as read?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Munt. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Agenda is approved.
Commissioner
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner
That was
Smith.
Commissioner
second.
Smith, sorry.
Next, we'll move along to item 9, communications from citizens. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters within jurisdiction of the town, but not on the agenda. The commission response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Is anybody here from the public wish to address the commission at this time? Not seeing any? We'll move along to report from council liaison on current events. Councilwoman Peterson.
Chairman, thank you. Chairman and members of the commission, I've been going to stand at the podium, but now I'm sitting on this side of the table so I can see all of you. Thanks for having me here tonight. I just wanted to let you know that last evening at our town council meeting, the mayor and town council voted unanimously to adopt a resolution approving the town of Gilbert's 2020 general plan and directing that it be submitted to the voters for ratification at the primary town election to be held on August 4th, 2020. I want to thank you for your work on that. I want to thank our amazing staff for all of their work on that. We had a great consultant that did this project for us this time, and this is my third general plan in Gilbert. It was the easiest, most meticulous process that we've gone through, so I'm just really pleased with the way that it's all gone, and I urge everyone to vote on August 4th, 2020. Vote yes for our general plan, please. Last evening, we also had recognition of Gilbert's Cactus Yards for winning the Outstanding Park of the Year Award for 2019, presented by the United States Specialty Sports Association. That park has now only been open just a year this month, and so it's great acknowledgement for the work that the town's put into that park and those fields, and I'm really proud of that effort that we've put forth. We held the Digital State of the Town a few weeks ago. One of Mayor Daniels' quotes is, "Today, Gilbert is a connected community of innovators and technologists who are focused on making sure our community continues to thrive now and for our future." If you haven't had a chance to see that, it's available online at gilbertaz.gov/state of the town. I presented you all with a pin this evening. That's a cute little water tower with a 100 on it. Those were handed out at the event for the Digital State of the Town, and I wanted you all to have one as a gift from me. Thanks for all you do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move along to public hearing consent items. All items listed below are considered the public hearing consent calendar. The commission may, by single motion, approve any number of items where, after opening the public hearing, no person requests that item be removed from the consent calendar. If such a request is made, the commission shall then withdraw the item from the public hearing consent calendar for the purpose of public discussion and separate action. Other items on the agenda may be added to the consent calendar and approved under a single motion. The items we'll be voting on the consent calendar will be item 11, DR 19-109, Quintana at Verde, item 12, UP 19-35, Quintana at Verde, 13, use permit 19-40, power and race storage outdoor, item 14, UP 19-41, power and race storage indoor, item 15, DR 19-119, power and race storage, item 16, DR 19-99, milling machinery, item 17, Z 19-16, Rivulon. Item 21, GP 19-13, Victory Plaza. Item 22, Z 19-25, Victory Plaza. I'd like to note that items 11, 12, 16 will be continued to the March 4th, 2020 hearing. Does anybody need to declare any conflicts of the agenda as written? We'll open the public hearing. Close the public hearing. Vice Chair, can I get a motion, please?
Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as you just read it, with items 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 21, and 22.
Motion for approval, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Simon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The consent calendar is approved. Next, we'll move along to public hearing non-consent. Non-consent public hearing items will be heard at an individual public hearing and will be acted upon by commission by a separate motion. During the public hearings, anyone wishing to comment in support of or in opposition to a public hearing item may do so. If you wish to comment on a public hearing item, you must fill out a public comment form indicating the item number on which you wish to be heard. Once the hearing is closed, there will be no further public comment unless requested by a member of the commission. First item we will hear is item 18, GP 19-09, bungalows on Ash. Josh, please.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. GP 1909, Z 1921, it's bungalows on Ash. The site in question is a 16-acre piece located along Gilbert Road in between Gilbert and Houston, directly north of the existing Sam's Club and south of the Dignity Health Urgent Care. The applicant's requesting a minor general plan change from general commercial to residential 8 to 14. The corresponding rezone request is to change the general commercial designation to multifamily low with a planned area development. If you remember, we brought this forward to the commission during December during the study session with the corresponding design review. Staff had brought up concerns with a few of the deviations the applicant was requesting regarding encroachment into the perimeter landscape setbacks. Those have been resolved. We also had a lengthy discussion in regards to the losing of the commercial and generally if it was too soon to give it up and if it was time to give something else a try. Staff also brought forward concerns regarding the increased setbacks and impact on the existing commercial properties to the north and south that would limit the future improvement or redevelopment of those sites with the zone change. I went over the development history during the study session, but just to give a quick recap, this site, there were multiple attempts to develop it. In the late 80s on the left, there was a plan approved for medical offices and retail, really nice plan, never panned out. Late 90s, 1999, Price Club came in and presented forth and got this plan approved, which is now the current Sam's Club site when they took it over. There was originally a plan for the northern half of the site, the subject site itself, which essentially mirrored what Sam's Club. As you see on your screen, this was approved in 1998 by the town council. Despite this approval for the master site plan for this site, there was also around 6 or 7 other approvals, including an IHOP, bank, oil and lube center, even a gas station. Despite all those approvals, on the site, nothing has actually ever been built. This is the proposed development plan, but I will actually switch to the colored just for better visual clarity. For the 16-acre site, the applicant is proposing approximately, well, not approximately, they are proposing 165 for-rent, single-story attached and detached bungalow housing units. So essentially, they're miniature single-family homes is, I guess, what they're going for. The average density is approximately 9 gross dwelling units per acre. The site itself, it includes a centralized amenity open space area. It will directly connect to the public park to the east. Facility will be gated with full ingress egress point off this existing drive to the south with an exit only access point directly to the north. The deviations requested in the PAD are, the first is that they're requesting to reduce the interior building separation distance from 20 to 10 feet. They're also going to be restricting themselves to a height of 26 feet and only 1 story. They're requesting to reduce the minimum common open space from 45% to 43%. In exchange, the applicants will be offering to make the private minimum open space to increase it from 60 square feet up to 196 square feet to create almost a miniaturized enclosed private backyard for each of the units. Staff is of the opinion that with these deviations and with the exchange in the open space, they're reasonable requests and we are in support of them. So just in conclusion, we're recommending approval of GP 1909 and Z 1921. The applicant is here with the full presentation, and if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Josh, for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions for staff right now? Okay. Is the applicant here? And if so, would you like to, I guess, come on up? If you could please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 10 minutes for your presentation.
There we go. Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Sean Lake, 1744 South Val Vista Drive, here on behalf of Cabin Homes. We appreciate the opportunity to be before you this evening with this project. We've gone through and listened closely to the comments received at the study session in December and have worked with staff. We've appreciated working with Josh and the entire planning staff and have tried to really work to resolve all those issues, as Josh pointed out, so we could bring a clean application to you this evening. As Josh pointed out, let's kind of start. When we first identified this site, we understand that there's a general philosophy in the town of Gilbert that we don't want to remove commercial inventory and change it to residential. But there are some locations in isolated areas, as staff pointed out, with their recommendation for approval, it might be time. This property has had multiple attempts or multiple run at it over a lengthy period of time. I think the property was originally zoned when I graduated from high school. And now I can't read the paper that I'm presenting. So it's been a long time since this property was originally zoned, and the demographics in the area, everything has built out. All the homes in and around the area built out, so everything has been established for a very, very long time, and there really hasn't been a run at it. But what we wanted to do is look to see what's in the area and do an analysis, and we put together in our narrative analysis of what's going on in the area, but I just wanted to point out some things or some of the constraints of this site. As you can see, the site is located between the Sam's Club here and the Dignity Health and the commercial activity, we'll call it, along Baseline Road. There's a substantial amount of activity and retail that is located along Baseline Road, as well as along Gilbert Road up and down. We have in addition to all the retail that's going on, the Fry's and everything else in the area, and some of my favorite restaurants, and I'm not going to point anything out specifically, but there's multifamily in the area, single-family detached, multifamily, single-family detached. There's a lot of different uses in this area as you go up and down Gilbert Road. But this site isn't on an arterial intersection, so it's not a high draw. It's also located on a curve. As we know, the curve in the road limits the access as you go south or north along Gilbert Road. So the accessibility to this site was challenged. It's mid-block, meaning if you go between Baseline and Guadalupe, Houston is the mid-block location. So this is mid-block between the mid-block of Houston and Baseline Road. So the site constraints or the challenges, normally you would see this planned for residential years ago with a lot of these master plans we've done, but it was planned for commercial, and they've tried to do commercial for many, many, many years and haven't had success. Having said that, we did an analysis of the area, and you can see we went up and down Gilbert Road and identified, are the services currently being provided? Because you don't want to remove commercial inventory if the services aren't currently being provided. But if they are being provided, maybe this is an instance where the town could look at that. And you can see that there are a total of 42 retail restaurant locations, 85 retail and service locations located in this area, and we've identified each little center going up and down Gilbert Road of this site to show that not only is there existing services that are being provided both with restaurants and retail and services, but there's also vacancy. And we identified that there's vacancy in all of these areas. So there is opportunity for people to come in and locate their goods, but those services are already being provided in this area. And so we thought maybe it would be best to change this to residential to get more customer base going to those existing. And we want to promote and protect the existing retail and encourage not only development and continued operations, but redevelopment of those areas that are in better locations, like along the arterial of Baseline and Gilbert Road, or Baseline and Guadalupe. So we presented that analysis to staff, and I think they probably took that into consideration in their recommendation for approval. After that, we presented a development plan to the town. What we would like to do is kind of a hybrid situation. It is not a true single-family detached product, but it's not a traditional multifamily product where you would have a 3-story apartment complex. And so you try to fit it between two codes, your single-family detached or your 3-story apartment complex. And so this is a single-family detached unit, single story, but it's built and operates and functions like a multifamily project. So each of these units are rented, but each of these units would also have a private yard. So for example, if you're a young professional or a young couple and you don't want to own a home, or you choose this to rent, you not only can have the benefits of having rental, but you can also have a private yard. For those of us with dogs, that's a big deal. I don't want to go rent an apartment complex where I have a little patio outside, but I got no place for my dog to go. A lot of young professionals are choosing this, and retirees are choosing this because they have the benefits of a single-family home and having a little bit of a backyard. They also have the benefits of a single-family home and having not anybody attached on either side of them. And it's a small-scale single-story unit. It gives a different type of a feel, but it still provides the type of amenities throughout the project. That was one of the things that we worked extensively with staff over the last 4 months, is to make sure that this project had sufficient amenities. As you can see at this site, we've got the Sam's Club down here. We have the medical office up here. This is a town park in this location, single-family detached homes, multifamily condos over here. But you come into the site, and we've created kind of a grand entrance with a clubhouse at this location, and a site plan will be coming to you later on, but just describing for the zoning purpose in the general plan, with a club amenity and pool with turf areas, big open space areas running down the center, and then crossing over into open space center here with a gate connection so that the community can also have the benefit of the public park. And so we've tried to tie the community together through a lineal open space down the center of the project, and then each one of these homes would have walkways or areas, pathways, to get to this central amenity along here and then to the public park. In addition, we work with the town staff to provide a trail around the perimeter of the site. So you get home from work, there's places for you to go walk with your spouse, or take your dog for a walk, go in here, go to recreational amenities, have the park, have a lot going on. You can see there's a lot of things that are going on in this community. It's just not limited in what the offering is. We wanted to throw some imagery of what the units do look like. This has been built in other places by Kevin, the developer of the site. They're very nice units. They have big open windows and lots of natural light that comes in, and you can do that when you're a single-family detached type of a product. At the Planning Commission study session, some of the issues that were brought up had to do with that changing commercial to residential. We think we've done our homework. The property owner has tried for years to do a commercial project on here with many different types of plans, and it didn't really transpire. We did our homework with the staff and ensuring that the uses that would be envisioned on this site are currently being offered for the demographics and the people who live in this area, and providing that analysis. Then the challenges and the constraints of the site as far as accessibility were further constraints for the site. So we think staff, in reviewing that, we support staff's position on that land use change. As far as the open space, Josh did a great job of outlining the open space. We think we have a substantial amount of open space in and around, dispersed equally through the site, that's common open space as well as private open space. We more than triple the amount of private open space that is required for each unit. Our minimum is 196 per unit, 196 square feet. Many of the units, or most of the units, are more than that. We just had to put a number down for a minimum. So we more than triple what the code would require for that. Another issue dealt with how will this change impact the adjacent properties. We put together a plan and we sent out notice in working with the town attorney to the north and south property owners to make sure that they understand what's going on. But the areas within those setback areas are drive aisles and parking areas that won't be affected. But nonetheless, we wanted to make sure that they receive their own separate notice addressed specifically to them for that, and I haven't received any feedback on that. But we wanted to make sure that that was provided. Phase 2 of the North Medical Office building, if you kind of take that, and would be allowed, and it would be outside that 75 feet. And on the south side, it's just the drive aisle and some parking area with the Sam's Club that would be affected. The other issue that was brought up at the study session had to deal with architecture and the DRB. Again, that will be coming forth with the site plan and the elevations in the coming months before this board. And so we'll bring that back at some point. So there's really no discussion or talk about that at this point. So we feel like we've addressed all the staff's questions, comments, and concerns. We feel like we've addressed the Planning Commission's comments and questions from the study session in December. And we think it's a great project that kind of fits a need for multifamily without having that traditional multifamily look. And it will fit into the area, both with medical office, Sam's Club, and single family and condos in the area on all sides. It kind of fits into that neighborhood, and we think it will be a good asset to the community. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and request that you support the project.
Great, thank you for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Cavaney.
Yeah, Sean, just one question. So you mentioned access to the adjacent park, and yet I understand it's walled and gated, right? So how is that access facilitated?
Excellent, Chairman, Commission members. So let me go back to this plan. So we have pedestrian walkways and connections all through the site. Because it's 18 acres, you can't really see them all, but there's walkways and connections. But at this point, there would be a pedestrian connection to this park at this location. So we'll have an open space area and a gathering area for our residents because this is a gated community. But our residents will be able to go through our gate access and go onto this town park.
And no access to that cul-de-sac on the east side?
No,
right?
no
Okay.
access. There would be a wall along that location here. No access, no vehicular access to that cul-de-sac.
All right, and then down on the, where Sodalicious is, no access into the Sam's Club parking lot, right? Just to the right of where right
Correct.
behind Sodalicious. No, the other one. I'm just going down.
There's Sodalicious right there.
Yeah, so the one to the right, the little aisle to the right there, that aisle. That looks like it dead ends?
That's existing. So if you can picture driving to either Sam's Club or Sodalicious now, or Biscuits, which is just south of Sodalicious. No shameless plug. What? Yum. Plugs for local businesses. We love Gilbert businesses. This driveway is existing, and so we're going to be finishing it off and making it, decorating it up a lot nicer. And then as you come in, you'll go right to go into the Sam's Club here. or you'll go left and you'll have our entrance, which is right here.
Oh, so the gating is actually on
The
that piece?
gating,
Oh,
the
okay, got
gating
it.
would actually be right there and right there.
Oh, okay, okay. I was
So
thinking it was
you'd
out on
come
the
in,
island
there would be parking available to come in here, park, go into the leasing office, the clubhouse, see the amenities, the pool, walk around the community. And then if you're going to drive in, you drive, the gate would open, you could drive around, gate would open, and then you would egress.
Okay, so the retail users to the south will be able to use that exit as an exit or an entrance into those, okay, got it.
That's a shared access that was
Perfect, okay.
recorded years ago.
Okay, that helps, because I think that creates additional flow through there, which is really nice. So, and then no other penetration, nothing in the north, obviously.
We have an emergency egress out here.
Oh, got it, okay.
Up in that
It's like
corner right
Is that like
there.
a fire gate or something there? Is that what okay, got it, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Simon.
Yeah, I just have one question with regards to runoff or retention. Is that going into that basin that's the park in the back, or is there?
We're retaining all our on-site. We're retaining all of ours on site.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. I think. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wish to address the commission at this time? Not seeing any. And do we have any need to bring Josh back up? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing and bring the discussion back up the dais. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add? Commissioner Cavaney?
So I'm actually really grateful to see that that this site has come forward with a development that staff is happy with. It looks, from my perspective, like a really good use. In fact, it seems to be a nice type of product transition between the single family and the multifamily to the west. So I think, you know, as we look for that nice transition of uses, I see that happening here. And I do empathize and can appreciate the struggle to get viable commercial on this tucked-in piece like this, in that spot of Gilbert Road, particularly on that curve and everything. So I think from a GP and a zoning perspective, this is a really good application, and I think the applicant has made a good effort to meet the staff's needs to make it work. And as far as I can see, it's going to be a great infill piece that is needed. So I'm good with it.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other comments?
I do,
Vice Chair.
Chairman. This development, we've had a couple of other developments like this in the town of Gilbert, and so we learned a lesson or two, perhaps, on those, and so forgive us if we got beat up because of other projects, but we like how this is coming forward, and we know that we have an opportunity to take a look at the DRB and the product again on the elevations. But as far as the planning and general plan and zoning on this one, I think it's great, and I like that you're utilizing the public park and all of that. So good project. Look forward to having it there. That's been vacant for as long as I can remember. So yeah, forever.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? No. Commissioner Simon.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say, I would agree. I'm not necessarily one for downzoning from commercial and losing that space in the town. However, I think that this is a good use, and I do like this iteration of the plan versus what we saw the first time through. So I really like the way that you've opened the space up and given more community space. So I appreciate your efforts to work with the town on that, so thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll entertain a motion for item 18, GP 19-09.
Chairman,
Vice Chair.
I move to approve. I move to recommend approval of General Plan 19-09, the bungalows, with conditions reported in the staff report.
Motion to recommend approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. Commissioner,
He can have
Toss
it.
up between
Yeah, he can take it.
Commissioner September and Commissioner Mudd.
okay. No, I'll let the recorder choose. Motion to recommend approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Can I have a motion for item 19Z 19-21?
Chairman, I move to recommend approval of case number 19Z 19-21, the bungalows on Ash.
Motion for recommended of approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Munt.
I think I got that one.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. We'll move along to item 20, Z 19-17, Burge Val Vista North. Nathan.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson, Planning Commissioners. This is, Burge Val Vista North. It's 162 acres at the northwest corner of Ocotillo and Val Vista roads. You can see it here, and this is just an enlargement of the Santan character area and where this fits in proximity to that. Other points of reference some of you may recognize are the Hampshire dairy that we all, or some of us saw a year or so ago down at the south of this, a half mile. So that was Maracay as well. So anyway, there's some proximity. Here's an enlargement of it, just to show you a context of roads. And as I go through this, just note that the north half of Appleby on the north side of this development is constructed. The south half of Appleby that would be rezoned with this would be constructed at a future phase. And 148th is located on the west, Ocotillo on the south, and Val Vista Drive on the east. So just a little recap of previous discussions. We saw this in October as a study session item. This is what that looked like. So you can see here, just take note of kind of the size and shapes of the request. You can see about 294 SFD lots, and you can see the number of SF6, 7, and 8. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. It's been a few months since you've seen it, so I just wanted to jog your memory on some of these changes. So comments we received at that study session, concerns with the overall density, the amount of SFD zoning, the smaller lots, the number of smaller lots. There were concerns with the gating, which we'll talk about, and some of the modifications, and just how this fit in with other master plans in the Santan character area. So those were the comments that staff and you shared with the applicant. And since then, we've worked with them pretty extensively on a number of changes. There were 509 units in that original proposal. Now we have 485. The breakdown of that is there's far less SFD. There's 60% of the acreage is SFD now, and 107, I believe, units or lots. So 294 to 107. And they've increased the number of SF6 lots and SF7 lots as well. So we'll go through that and break that down. But this graphic really kind of shows well the darker orange in the south is the SFD. The lighter orange as you go up is the SF6. There's two different parcels of SF6, two different parcels of SF7, which are kind of the yellow, and then the very light yellow in the northwest corner is the SF8. So it's just easier to read this illustrative site plan than a black and white development plan, but this kind of clearly shows, things, access on all four sides. Again, they're proposing gates on all four sides. You can see the access and circulation, the design of the community, curved linear streets, central open space. Those are all things that I think everyone at that time was pretty supportive of. Other things that have changed, the school, Chandler Unified School District has purchased this piece of property and is in the process of constructing, I think, a K through 8 school there. So that is happening. And we'll go through the other things. So here's the development plan. A little bit harder to digest, black and white, but again, these are the areas of the parcels of rezoning. In there, you can see there's a breakdown of the modifications requested on the development plan. I've enlarged those, and we'll go through those. But you can see the distribution of lots and acreages of zoning, things of that nature. So I provided this to just kind of show you one of the things that we had concerns with was the diversity of lots and lot sizes and lot types. And so there's been quite a change since our study session. We think that's nice now. So phasing plan was another thing we talked about. Key point of that was making sure that 148th, currently very minimally constructed, would be constructed with the phase one of this. This is a phasing plan that would be approved through zoning. So you can see the areas in blue are what would be done at phase one. So you can see Val Vista, of course, Ocotillo, their half street, and then their half street of 148th. And again, as I mentioned earlier, one Appleby is already constructed for two-way traffic. The north half is constructed for two-way traffic. So what that means is there would be full connections of arterials and collectors around the entire 162 acres. I think that's important to note as we talk about things like gates and how access and circulation to this community will work. So I mentioned the modifications. I want to go through them real quick. They're in your staff report, but the bold items are what is a modification. So modifications can be in excess of what the development standards are. For example, in this, development standard for SF8 is 8,000. Their lot size, minimum lot size is going to be 9,000. The areas, so you can see the other bold, the dimensions are a bit different. Area that I circled here, though, I missed the 70, but those modifications that are less than the development standards I circled, and the bold ones that are above, you can see are shown here as well. So everyone is, as we go through, you can just kind of see those modifications, and I'm happy to answer any questions on it. But SF8, 38 acres, 75 total lots, and there's the percentages of the total lots and gross acreage. Two SF7 parcels, parcel 2 and 3, and you can see what they're requesting there. And SF7 totaling about 33% of the acres and 28% of the lots. The 6s, SF6s, two parcels in there. You can see the modifications listed, and they're, again, they've really bumped up the number of lots and the percentages. And then the SFD, finally, all those modifications are in excess or more like reducing the height, the maximum height and things like that for a structure. So you can see 16% and 107 total lots, that's about 22%. Talking about gates, I know that's what came up in the study session, and I've received some calls and emails about it as well. So they're proposing to gate it. One of the things that's changed since then that we've worked with them on and they're comfortable with is making sure the gates are open to pedestrians, bikes, things of that nature. And there's a condition in the ordinance that you could see, condition L. So that's something that would be approved through zoning. So 10 years down the line, that wouldn't go away. And then I wanted to include some sections of the general plan to talk about gates, because although 162 acres, gating 162 acres sounds obviously like a lot, I think the key points that kind of guide us in the general plan are the goals and policies that guide us in the general plan are things like 3.7, 1.7 that talk about what is important is, if you're going to gate, if it's going to be a master plan, it's important to ensure the natural flow of traffic from arterial and collector roads uninterrupted and community remains accessible to pedestrian traffic. So when I look at this subdivision and I say, is it complying or isn't compliant with those goals and policies of the general plan, in my estimation, that it does meet those goals and policies of the general plan. So going to be open to pedestrians, and the collector street system is going to be constructed with this. So, and then here's the condition that would be approved in the ordinance or moving forward to get those pedestrian gates to remain open. In your staff report, I've listed out all the goals, policies that we think that this request meets, and with that, here's our staff recommendation to recommend approval to the town council. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions for staff? Not seeing any. If the applicant would like to come up and give a presentation, please give your name, address. You will have 10 minutes.
It works. Good. I'm learning technology. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Brendan Ray, 702 East Osborne, here on behalf of the applicant, Mary Kay Homes. We are certainly excited to talk to you tonight about a development that will be known as Waterston. This particular one will be known as Waterston North. As Nate indicated in his presentation, Mary Kay is developing a lot of land here. I was before this group probably about 2 years ago talking about the northwest corner of Val Vista and Chandler Heights, which is under development, the old hamster dairy that Nate mentioned. And so you've got that 160 acres on the far south. This is a great exhibit to show that. You can kind of see it in the bottom down. Where's the magical pointer? We have a magical pointer? Oh, there we go. Yep, perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Bloomfield. I got the mouse. All right, good. Sorry for that technical difficulty. This is the 100. Dang it. Dang it. Dang it. That's a touchy mouse.
Let me show you how to get up here. If you go here, with your mouse, touch that, and then say laser pointer, and now you can move around.
Perfect. I'll figure it out yet. Apologize. This was Hamster Dairy, 162 acres. The site that we're talking about is this 162 acres here at the north. Mary Kay is under contract on this one and is working on development plans to bring forward. So all told, this entire roughly 480 acres will be known as Waterston, and it is planned to be a master planned HOA controlled over all three of the parcels. And so, as Nate indicated, we have worked closely with planning staff, engineering, traffic, and others to ensure that this is a high-quality development that is appropriate and compatible with the Santan character area and with some of the adjacent developments. We've been working with the town on this since summer of 2018, if you can believe it. That's how long we've been working with them to get this up to speed. We've listened as well to neighbors as we've gone throughout this process, and I'll walk through that a little bit later. But some of the concerns, and we've tried to address those concerns as best we could. We likewise believe that we tried to listen to the concerns that were raised in front of this group at the study session back in October. And so we certainly are appreciative of staff's recommendation. They did a good job in their staff report and presentation, and we're okay with the conditions listed in the report and would request this body's recommendation for approval. So with that, I'll just touch briefly on it. I'm not going to go through it, but the general plan and the zoning map, in terms of what it is, this proposal is consistent with the general plan and the density range that is called out on it of 2 to 3.5 acres. 2 to 3.5 dwelling units, apologize. This is the current site plan as Nate indicated, and this is certainly consistent with other master plan developments that Mary Kay has worked on in the Southeast Valley. They have taken a considerable amount of time and effort and energy to really focus on the layout of this, and certainly when you're looking at a master plan with multiple zoning districts, and tried to be real thoughtful. And certainly the plans that will be presented for you in connection with the pre-plat, you'll see that there has been a considerable amount of work that's gone into the landscape design, the park and amenity areas, and really focusing on the pedestrian experience. At this scale, it's tough to see kind of what that pedestrian experience will look like, but I can assure you, as we've worked through this with staff for the better part of a year and a half, that has been a focus of theirs and has been a focus of ours as well. I'll tell you that 25% of the site is open space. We're proud of that and proud of the ability, as you can see, on what we are doing. One of the things that I'll just focus on very briefly is kind of the central amenity area, which is a key feature of this development. And I know it's not pertinent for purposes of the zoning discussion, but just to give you a preview of what is to come, this is a general layout of it. This represents an approximate $3 million investment that Mary Kay is planning to do into it. You can start to see a little bit on this, kind of the details that's going into that amenity area. Lots of opportunities for social gathering and people to enjoy. These are kind of the building elevations, but again, I just wanted to show that to give you an idea, representative of the quality that Mary Kay is committed to. And so let me step back in time a little bit in terms of the neighbors, and I'll touch on that very briefly. The site plan that is on the screen now, this was one that was presented in October of 2018. That was the first neighborhood meeting that we held. There was about 20 neighbors in attendance at that meeting. Obviously, it's drastically different than the plan that is presented to you tonight. Under that plan, we were requesting a slight modification or a minor general plan amendment to increase the density for the amount of lots that are on the east side or on the right side of that screen as you're out along Val Vista. And some of the concerns that we heard during that meeting dealt with traffic, dealt with the density. At that particular point in time, there was discussions about Chandler Unified wanting to locate an elementary school on the site. And in particular, they were concerned about that and the access and then density, and particularly the townhome site in the middle. Obviously, this is a site plan that was presented to you at the study session as well as in August 2019 neighborhood meeting. And so we listened to the concerns about the density and reduced it. That old plan, we had 672 lots at a density of about 4.15. The plan that's on the screen now, as Nate indicated, and the one that was at the study session, went from 672 to 509, so a loss of 163 lots. The density was reduced from 4.15 down to 3.14. And then since then, CUSD has acquired that blue parcel, and they are under construction on a elementary school. So just try to compare differences between the plan that was presented to the neighbors and before you in October on the left and the plan that is before you tonight. And I've gone ahead and overlaid the zoning districts just to see it a little bit clearer. I know Nate brought it up, but just so you can see the reduction that's taken place in terms of lots. Again, from 509 down to 486. The amount of SFD has significantly decreased. We've been able to increase the depths of the lots, and we've made adjustments to the layout to ensure that we do continue to maintain a good, strong, and pedestrian circulation. And so we'd like to believe that this demonstrates our ability to listen and to make those changes where we can. So from a zoning perspective, this is the zoning map today. And if if you guys recommend approval and the council approve it, this is what that zoning map will look like. And you can start to see kind of the thoughtfulness in Mary Kay's design of matching up zoning districts with existing zoning districts to our north and to our east, and to our west as well. One of the things that I wanted to highlight, and again, we'll be able to get into in greater detail if we like tonight, or certainly when the preliminary plat comes, is the pedestrian access. Because as Nate indicated, the general plan in a number of places talks about if you're going to gate a community, make sure you don't disrupt flows on arterials and collector streets. And we are not doing that as indicated. Appleby Road's going to be constructed. 148th is going to be constructed in phase 1. And so then it focuses on pedestrian connectivity. And so what you see on your screen highlighted in purple is an 8-foot wide sidewalk that is running, as you can see, north-south and east-west. That was designed on purpose. Obviously, the town standards is 4 to 5 feet for a sidewalk. We are doubling that to be able to allow for a good pedestrian experience. You can kind of see a cross-section on the lower left-hand side of your screen as to what we anticipate that sidewalk will look like. And then important to the general plan and to what Mary Kay has visited with is maintaining that pedestrian access and ensuring that it is open. And that's why we worked with staff, worked with legal on this condition L that is in your staff report that specifically says we are required to keep those pedestrian gates open from dawn until dusk. And we're to put a provision in the CCNRs that will be recorded against the property to ensure that that access remains open and a prohibition on it being amended out. And so we think we're doing all the things that we can, belt and suspenders, to ensure that that pedestrian access maintains and stays open, not only for our community, but for people that want to walk through this community. It is a gated community, but we think we're doing lots of good things. Nate touched on the standards, and I've kind of compressed it, and I'm happy to go through in as much detail as you'd like about it. But the whole goal of the standards, in particular the ones that I know Nate circled on his and that I've circled on my presentation as well, is we believe that these requested changes are relatively minor and certainly allow Mary Kay to provide a better platform upon which they can build houses and they can meet home buyer needs as they continue to market to a wide variety of people. We think that these deviations do allow Mary Kay to create a development that will appeal to a variety of different home buyers, which will allow Gilbert to still maintain a diverse community. And so with that, again, you can see where we started in this process roughly a year and a half ago with that site plan on the left. The one on the right is the one that's before you today. We think we've done a good job in terms of working closely hand in glove with all varieties of staff to ensure that this is a high quality development, and we believe that it is. And so with that, I would request this commission's recommendation for approval in accordance with staff's recommendation. Happy to answer any questions, Chair, to the extent that there are questions that I need to. I believe there are some neighbors here that wish to speak, and so I would certainly like the opportunity for some rebuttal afterwards.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? We don't have any questions for you at this time.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. I do have 2 comment cards here. Jenna Bishop, please come up to the podium, state your name, address, and you will have three minutes for your statement.
Hi, my name is Jenna Bishop at 21208 South 158th Street in Gilbert. Chairman and Commission, thank you for letting me speak. The biggest issue I have with the new Mary Kay development, and have done a lot of very positive changes from the beginning to now. I do love this design. It looks really good. My biggest issue, though, is with the gates themselves, especially gating the northeast and south side of the community. The west side of the community, as it's kind of larger homes, larger lots, set back north of the school, doesn't really kind of apply to this. But I think with the inclusion of the school in the site, whether Mary Kay had planned that or not, really lends itself to an environment that needs to be created with more of a community and school community focus. All the schools that have gone in Chandler recently, Freedom, Haley, Carlson, Navarrete, Peterson, Ryan, they've all worked with the neighborhoods that they were built in, and there's green spaces nearby, there's community parks nearby. There's things like that that lend to more of a community environment for the public dealing with the school, as well as the students leaving school, coming from school, that kind of thing. Right now, how it's proposed, it would basically be a school kind of separated from its community behind gates, behind block walls, and the majority of the zone of the school is north and east of where the school is now going to be located, as it was Weinberg, which is more centrally located and is going to be moved to this new site. The pedestrian access has been addressed a little bit. I still think that there's going to be some conflict with that. Pedestrians walking north from the neighborhoods there as well as east, just being able to have access to the school with vehicular traffic access. I think it would create a safer environment, picking up kids, things like that. I understand that communities don't really like vehicular traffic with schools. However, there is a school here, so can you have the best of both worlds? A wall and a fence as well as a school. That kind of creates some conflict. I also think you saw 400 and some acres of this master plan community is all going to be blocked off from the rest of Gilbert. I feel like it creates a division between the Gilbert community as well as the community that's being built. Members of the gated community kind of become their own residents of their specific community instead of community of Gilbert as a whole, as well as blocked off Gilbert as a whole from kind of being members of that community. The other thing is that because there's such a wide range of home prices and options available, sizes available, it seems kind of like there's no real reason to have these gates in this community. It adds this air of exclusivity, but to what? Single-family home, 7,000 square feet lot. It's nothing really warranting it to be exclusive. Again, I can understand the west side, but the north, south, and east are what I'm really focusing on here. And then one of Gilbert's land growth area, the policy 1.2 was to kind of connect to the broader community, and I don't feel like this does that at all. It really closes off the broader community from developing community with these new residents that are moving in, especially being associated with a school. Even though it is outside the community, I understand that, but it's still associated with that area and the new homes being built. So just a couple solutions. Again, ideally, I'd love to see no gates on the north, south, and east side, or have those gates open for vehicular traffic during the day as the pedestrian gates will be open, just to ease the flow through there with the school and the parks and the open spaces. Or even to gate just the enclaves of the neighborhood, just to still allow that movement through the middle of the neighborhood. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, thank
Any
you.
questions?
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Does anybody have any questions for her? Thank you so much for your time. Jennifer and Darren Connors. Again, if you could please come up to the podium, state your name, address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Connors. I live at 1452 East Indigo Street, just north of this new development. My biggest concern is with the pedestrian gates. They say that they will be unlocked. However, that doesn't really allow for free flow, especially for my family. We ride a lot of bikes. We have a lot of bike riders. We have to stop and open a gate. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And also, I guess one of my biggest concern is it says they will be unlocked from dawn till dusk. But that time changes throughout the year, right? What is dawn, what is dusk throughout the year? It comes at different times. What about Halloween night, when kids want to go over there and go trick-or-treating? We live in a community just north, and we're very tight-knit community. Like Jenna was saying, we all came together because of the schools. And all these children in my community are going to be going down to that school. They need to have that free access. But not just for the school, for their friends. They're all going to be going to school with these kids, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have a gate for the pedestrian entry. There's a community right by Haley Elementary over in Chandler on the other side of Lindsay. They have gates for cars, but they don't have gates locked, or no gate for pedestrians, so it's open. So you ride in and out, walk in and out. There's no opening or closing a gate. There's no locking a gate. And I'm not even really sure what they mean by a gate. Like, is it something that's going to be open during the day and then close at night, or is it something we're going to have to open and it'll just be unlocked? So those would be the questions that I would have concerning the pedestrian gates.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Connors? Thank you very much for your presentation. Does anybody else in the public wish to address the commission at this time on this case? If you want to come up and state your name and address for the record, please, and you will also have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Greg Brown. I live at 15524 East Via DePaulo, which is just to the south and east of this development. I guess I just heard something that on the presentation that Mary Kay is looking to develop this entire section from Appleby all the way up to Chandler Heights. My only question was, is in this entire community of theirs going to be gated so that nobody has access through their communities other than through these gates? I asked that because there's a lot of horse activity on the east side of the road, and I'm just wondering what provisions has this development or any of those developments planned for the people that live on the east side of the road and the kind of activities that are occurring already. So that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody have any questions for this gentleman? No. Okay. Brennan, if you want to come up, and you'll have a 5-minute rebuttal.
I don't want to necessarily replow a furrow that I've already gone down, but let me just go back and kind of talk again and kind of emphasize, because two of the comments dealt with pedestrian access and gating and why it is that we're doing that. There's a number of reasons that Mary Kay is choosing to gate it. One of the things that they look at is because of the investment in the public amenity, or the HOA amenity in the middle, and because of the way that they've designed this. And again, I can appreciate on this scale of plan, you can't see all the pedestrian connectivity that's running through it. But there is a strong desire for it to be a very pedestrian-friendly community. And so one of the ways that they've tried to do that to slow down traffic and to minimize the amount of traffic that comes through there is to gate it, and yet still provide and allow for pedestrian access to occur through the site. One of the things that I failed to mention is that although this school is not within the community, I know that I believe Ms. Bishop mentioned Navarrete, and that's a community that I'm familiar with in Sun Groves. That's smack dab in the middle of the community, and I know that the city of Chandler has in the past done that. This time they're out here, but nevertheless, it is going to be gated. Their access is going to be out here on the front, but we, when working with Chandler Unified, will have a pedestrian access gate through our community that will go roughly more or less where that laser pointer hopefully is going. Yes. And so people to the north, people to the east, obviously if they're crossing Val Vista, which is going to be a 6-lane superhighway, a full build out, they still obviously have an ability to take the public sidewalks if they're walking along Appleby and along 148th, as Nate indicated. But additionally, they have access through the community, through those pedestrian gates along this 8-foot sidewalk to be able to safely access here. The other reason that schools, although they're great and wonderful, they create a huge amount of traffic headache. And the prospect, I think, for these residents and looking out for them of having a bunch of vehicles that are going to come through here and start parking down in here or start lining their cars up in here because they're trying to avoid the natural flow and what the school district has set up. That kind of detracts from what Mary Kay is trying to create in this development. The other thing, the reason for the gating is it allows Mary Kay to provide private streets. And with those private streets, we're able to provide a deeper rear yard for these homeowners. Now, these private streets still meet the city's local standard criteria, 32 feet face a curb to face a curb. And so there still will be an ability for residents to park on both sides of the street. The private street section usually allows 29 feet. Working with the town, they said, hey, can you give us 32 so we can make sure there's parking on both sides? Because I know that was a question that came up at the study session a few months ago. And so we are doing that. And again, the whole goal is to try to create a pedestrian experience, not only for our residents within, but for those outside. Again, an 8-foot sidewalk, and you can see that cross-section kind of running through there. I don't know that I understood the gentleman's comment about the activities on the east. I'm going to guess that he lives somewhere over in here. And there still is a collector street system that doesn't exist today that will be completed. In connection with this development on the south, 148th Street's going in. Brooks Farm Road is going in. Unless I'm mistaken, I think there's a trail that runs along Brooks Farm Road as well. And so we are putting, with that development, a trail in. With this development, as Nate indicated, Appleby Road is being constructed here. 148th is being constructed. And then when this development comes online, we will complete 148th that exists part of the way today, but complete 148th along here. So in the end of the day, what you'll have is you'll have a better improved street circulation system with collectors and arterials that are designed to move traffic. The city's, or the town's capital improvement project is improving Val Vista to make it that 6-lane superhighway today. And so you'll have that plus the ability with these collector streets, once these developments go in, to be able to help with that traffic pattern and stuff like that. So again, I believe I've tried to touch on the comments that I've heard. Again, I'm happy to answer any additional questions, but we're appreciative of staff's recommendation and would request your recommendation for approval as well.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Brennan?
Chairman.
Commissioner September.
Mr. Ray, for the access gates, for the pedestrian access gates on the north, south, east, and west, and those will be open during the day. And one of the questions was, will the gates literally be physically opened, or will they just be unlocked so people have to open them? Can you speak to what that looks like and how they lock and unlock?
Yeah, through the chair, Commissioner September, I think I know the answer, but if you permit me a minute to confer with my client, I want to make sure I get it correct.
Yes.
Through the chair, Commissioner September, they're going to be keypad gates, pedestrian gates that'll be on them. During the day, from dawn till dusk, that keypad will not be active, and it will activate at nighttime. And obviously, if I've had friends in gated communities and they give me the gate code to be able to drive in as well as to be able to use the pedestrian gates. So they'll be closed, but people can open them to be able to walk through them during the allotted appropriate times.
Thank you. Anyone else? I guess my question is, maybe you've already touched upon it and it just flew over my head. What is the purpose of gating this community?
Chairman, I thought I touched on it, and I apologize if I didn't. There's a number of reasons, including an ability to really slow down traffic.
Well, let's focus on the pedestrian gates then, because that seems to be the concern of the public. So what's the purpose of providing accessible pedestrian gates that are lockable?
Part of that reason deals with security and the perception of security that a gated community brings with it. In addition, there is a sizable investment that Mary Kay is putting into their amenity center. And certainly the desire is to try to discourage as many people as possible that aren't appropriate, or that don't live in the community from using that HOA center there in the middle. And so those are some of the reasons.
So would it be possible to gate around that amenity instead of the entire community?
Well, again, Chairman, there's a number of reasons that I'm happy to go through again in terms of why we're gating the entire community. Certainly, if you look at the general plan, which is a guiding document, and you look at the provisions that Nate threw up, we are still meeting those. And I've had lots of discussions with staff about the gating. To be able to have staff stand up and say that's something that they are supportive of, that carries a lot of weight for me personally. It might not for you and the rest of you that are up there voting. But when we look at it and you look at that guiding criteria, it talks about pedestrian connectivity, and we still are providing that pedestrian connectivity.
Okay, and I'm just merely asking questions. I'm not trying to portray, a thought that I have
Sure.
or stance that I feel about this. So they're just questions that I'm
Sure.
just throwing out there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Brennan?
I have one, Brian.
Commissioner Smith.
Brennan, you mentioned the idea of pedestrian traffic. I think one of the ladies who commented was talking about their family and riding bikes and so forth. Would you allow bikes to go through there for kids on their way to school?
Oh, through the chair, Commissioner Smith, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we have that wider sidewalk through there, so that if people don't want to travel in the street, why that 8-foot sidewalk allows enough space for people to ride a bike and for people to walk and pass by.
Thank you.
Oh, I just had one more stupid question. My understanding is the pedestrian gates they're key locked and they're dusted on. So I forget which member from the public raise this question. What about Halloween, when kids are out trick-or-treating past dusk? Would they have access into this community to get their treats?
Chairman, we're happy to see how we can program it so that on those, kind of special nights and stuff like that it does happen.
Yeah, because Halloween seems to just be like that's really when everybody kind of gets together as a community, is Halloween. Just not a whole lot of opportunity. You go up to a stranger's house and you ask for candy and they give it to you, except for that one night. That's not allowed. I tried it once and GPT showed up. Well, if we don't have any more questions for Brennan, do we?
I just have one
Vice Chair?
question. Brennan, there's been enough concerns tonight expressed from the public, and we appreciate you coming and expressing your concerns, so thank you. And typically, I'm not a fan of gating an entire 160 acres. That's for all the reasons that they mentioned. It's not very inclusive and all of these things. I get it why you're doing it now. There's a number of reasons. Narrowing up the street section so that you can get a deeper backyard, because you've learned from your clients and from your home buyers that they would prefer to have that. So you're answering that need, and I also understand that on this one you've got this big investment and you want to gate it off, and so I had a similar thought. Could you just gate around that and the larger lots and let that be the way it is? And it's a little late for that discussion right now because you've got your land plan and it works. We're still at the GP and zoning stage, but you've done all the homework to make sure that this works. And so I guess my question for you now is, in that middle quarter section, do you plan on, because in the south one, the gating was just for the larger lots, and so I guess one of my questions or concerns would be on the future of that middle one. And it's irrelevant to this case tonight, and I get that, but still curious as to what the plan is on
Sure.
those lots.
Sure. Vice Chair Bloomfield, just for the benefit so that everyone understands, because I know there were some members of the commission that weren't on the commission when we took this 160 acres down here on the south. What Commissioner Bloomfield is referencing is about where that laser pointer is. This half of the development is gated, and this half of the development is ungated. And that's on this south, again, not before you tonight. And although it's, again, not pertinent to this case, we've certainly heard the discussions that have taken place tonight and that we've had with staff as it relates to gating. I don't know that we've decided yet whether or not this middle section will be gated or not. We haven't gotten that far in the planning process, but certainly hearing the concerns of the neighbors and hearing the discussion tonight on the dais, that's something that we will take a hard look at.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any more questions for Brennan? Okay, thank you, Brennan, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any reason to bring Nathan back up?
I
Commissioner
do.
Munt?
Yeah, thank you. I have one question for staff. We're talking about the investment of the $3 million, and I just wanted to understand, is that actually grossly larger than other developments of this size and scope for ungated communities within Gilbert in recent past?
Chairman Anderson, Commissioner Munt, I would say it is. I don't know, I can't get into what they normally do on amenity packages, and of course, the scale of this is much larger than many. I think Mary Kay could come up here, or some of their staff could come up here and tell you what, the amount of infrastructure time, money, that they put into Hampshire area or Watterson to the south. And if it's on par with that, I would say it probably is. And so the scale of this, it makes it by default, something that's going to be fairly significant. But $3 million, and I think they could show you, they have their latest submittal, their preliminary plat and open space plan that kind of shows what that's going to look like. They could kind of show you. It is, definitely a quality investment that, we have design guidelines, we have things of that nature that kind of guide us, but, that seems their amenities are going to be, fairly high, high quality and kind of above board from what I've seen. But,
Okay.
it is a master plan community, so
Right.
it's,
And then just one other question relating to, because this is a Chandler school. If this were a Gilbert school, would there be different rules that would be according any of that?
no,
Okay.
no, sir. No.
Okay.
It's,
Anything else for Nathan? All right, thank you, Nathan. I'll close the public hearing and bring the discussion back up the dais. Any discussion, comments? Commissioner Cavaney?
So thank you to those who've come to speak, very articulate and some great points, wonderful points. And I don't normally appreciate gating unless there's some good reasons. And I think if the gating is just for exclusivity reasons, yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't think it's worth it. But I think in this case, the applicant makes some pretty good points that this development, the uniqueness of the development, I think matter. For example, the positioning of the school is perhaps not typical, and so ingress egress to that school can be a challenge for those neighbors if those streets aren't used properly. And I know I used to drop my kids off at school, and I found every quick route I could to get around that school, and that meant going through everybody's neighborhoods, and I know they didn't love it. So I'm sensitive to that, and I can appreciate the gating rationale there. I also can appreciate the amenity input that they've got there. I think they could have probably gone either way with the pedestrian gates, either leaving it completely open with no gate and just blocking cars. But at least they've gone some middle ground by doing a keypad, then with a daytime open of that. So I think in this case I appreciate the articulation and the points brought forward, but I think in this case I'm supportive of the gating here. It'd be interesting to see how the next piece develops, of course, and of course it'll depend on the design and the dynamics that come with that design. But I think those are my thoughts going into the vote. So.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner September?
So I was contacted by the applicant this week. I had a chance to meet with them, and they shared most of the presentation that they shared with us tonight. I also got to spend some time with the planner, with Nathan, and we talked about the proposal and how it's changed since the October 2nd study session that we originally saw this at. And I'm glad to see the applicant made such significant changes with a lot reduction count. They went from 43% to 16% on the single-family D. And then I think the other thing I like is the increased size of the lot standards, the lot depths that they were doing, the lot square footage. And I think it's the gating that allows them to have the little bit narrower streets to provide that additional space for the home products that they have. So I'm supportive of the applicant and what they've done here to make significant changes, especially with all the SFD that was originally along Val Vista Road, bordering all those other larger parcels that were on the east side of the street, and they made a significant reduction in that as well. So I'm glad that impact was reduced.
Thank you. Any other comments?
One last thing. I just want to thank Nathan for answering all my questions over the last few months, and good luck in the traffic department.
Commissioner Simon?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I appreciate members of the community coming, stating your case, and I appreciate your concerns, but I also feel the same as Commissioner Cavaney. I believe I live close to a school, and I see on a daily basis less and less kids actually walking to school and more parents actually driving them, going through the neighborhood quite quickly. And so I feel in this situation with the proximity of the school in the neighborhood, I believe that with the way that the streets are lined out, we would see probably very similar things. And I like that they have made concessions with regards to the gates being unlocked, as well as the wider sidewalks for the bike lanes, or being able to ride the bikes through the community and walking through the community. So I would be in support of the development in this situation.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Munt?
Yeah, I would be remiss not to note that we seem to be talking about schools like they're a scourge on society. I don't know, I happen to think that they're great because kids learning things makes them smart citizens, but I can deal with a little traffic. I live near a school too. But I'm not a huge fan of gates per se, but I do want to recognize the vast changes to the plan and the adoption of a lot of the comments that the applicant has put together, and that I think that it's quite notable, and echoing the sentiments of others on the commission, that they did come quite a way to do that. And I do understand the business case of the safety and security, and although I find it to be an absolute illusion because they're really not hard to get through if you really wanted to, I do understand that the business case of why that makes sense for sales. So I just wanted to say I'm appreciative of the efforts, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I do have one thing I'd like to put out there for discussion, and it's a possible stipulation to put onto this motion if it goes for approval, and it has to go to the pedestrian gates. And it sounded like the developer was open to this, and essentially it's looking into means of programming the gates so they operate during special events and certain holidays to exceed outside of that dusk to dawn time frame. So how does the commission feel about something like that?
Chairman,
Vice Chair.
if I may, I appreciate the sentiment that where you're headed, but I think making a stipulation across from a zoning stipulation standpoint, I think that's probably a bit much. I mean, there's going to be an HOA in charge of this community, and the residents will eventually take that over, and it'll be their say as to what they want to do with those gates. And I think as long as we make the recommendation that this seems like a good idea from a community standpoint, Mary Kay's proven themselves to be a good developer, and they certainly are making a huge investment into the town of Gilbert in just this area. So I think as long as we make the request, it won't fall on deaf ears, and they'll be able to figure out how best to do that within their own community and let them regulate that.
Okay, so is there something that we could put attached with this on a stipulation, or is it just, we just note it on the record and?
Noted on the record would be sufficient, but I'm open to hearing from the
What
commission.
should everybody else kind of think about that? Or what's their thoughts about, or should we just?
I think you do
Not
it on a
entertain it at all.
case-by-case basis, and I think it should be left up to the HOA.
Okay.
You're going to have special events. You may have a wedding or something in there. I've been around, I have gated communities in my neighborhood. That kind of event occurs, it's well known that the gates are going to be open for a certain period of time. I think you do it case by case.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm also thinking too, like if there, especially with the school being there, come the winter time, I mean, it doesn't get light out till about 7 o'clock, and chances are, I'm assuming children are still on their way to school. So there are kids living in that neighborhood going to school or around that neighborhood that need to cut through. The gate's locked. That's kind of a security thing as well.
Yeah, and just, another question on the stipulation. I don't know with these gates being just a code, I know in the driving lanes, there would likely be a call box. And so if a kid is standing at this gate, doesn't know the code because he was at band practice late, is he going to just be standing and have to walk all the way out down Val Vista, or can he just not get in? Will he be able to call? I guess, I know maybe they have cell phones, it's a non-issue, but just a question or a comment that it would be nice that if there is some accessibility outside of just a standalone unit.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'd hate to render some kind of stipulation that has to be managed from the dais here on that sort of thing. I prefer to leave it up to the HOA. I think that's the right way to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll just scrap the idea altogether, but I think we got the point across that it'd be desired. Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, let's entertain a motion. Commissioner Cavaney?
Okay. For the following reasons, The development proposal conforms to the intent of the general plan. It can be appropriately coordinated, et cetera. Hang on, where's the actual motion? All right, I move to recommend approval for GP 19.
Z.
I'm sorry, Z19-17 Burgeville Vista North.
Okay, recommendation for approval, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. For everybody that came to speak to the commission on this case, thank you for your time tonight and your comments. It's greatly appreciated. Move along to administrative items. Planning Commission minutes. Consider approval of the minutes of study session and regular meeting of January 8th, 2020. Vice Chair, can I get a motion on that?
Chairman, I move to approve the planning commission minutes for the 2 meetings listed in the agenda.
Motion for approval, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Munt. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Minutes are approved. Report from chairman and members of the commission on current events. I don't have anything to report. Does anybody else?
Well, I would just give an update to my injury from the Ninja Park. The surgeon ended up saying I don't need surgery, and I've started therapy, and my arm is slightly stronger. So you guys are all safe to go try your Ninja Parking.
That is great news. Report from planning services manager.
Again, I would just like to thank everybody for their help on the general plan. As Councilmember Peterson mentioned, it was unanimously passed through council, and just everybody did a lot of work, staff, commission, the public, the general plan advisory group, and I really appreciate everybody's effort.
All right, thank you. If there's no objection, we'll adjourn.